And so I'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Board of Trustees of Weatherford College. Today's Thursday, June 9th, 2022. It's about 2 p.m. We're in the community room of the Emerging Technologies and Workforce Building, which is located at 225 College Park Drive, Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, to consider and act on the posted agenda. Just call the meeting to order. This is agenda topic number 1. I'll ask Mr. Baker at this time to conduct the invocation, if you will, sir.
Yes, sir. Please bow with me.
Thank you.
Lord, we're thankful to you for the summertime, chance for a lot of people to renew and reflect and prepare for a brand new academic year. Thank you for the students you brought to us this summer and are bringing to us for the fall. Please be with the board as they deliberate today and in meetings in the future. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Please stand with me and I'll conduct the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. But please be seated. Ms. Worley, do we have any individuals not on the agenda to give a public comment?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. How are you today? We'll go to number 3 on the agenda, President's Report, and that would be Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the Weatherford College Board of Trustees, I would like to give a few brief recognitions, employee notices, and an enrollment update. Recognitions. Weatherford College's third affordable bachelor's degree program begins this fall and is ideal for those in the health sciences field to advance their careers. The Bachelor of Applied Technology in Medical and Health Services Management degree will be offered in a hybrid online in-person format. 2 additional affordable bachelor's degrees programs are in the planning and approval stages. Congratulations to our Coyote tennis and golf teams. Our tennis team finished the national tournament in 8th place, and our golf team finished 17th at the national tournament. It was an amazing accomplishment for both squads to make the national tournament in their first year. Women's basketball, baseball, and softball all made their respective regional tournaments. Our WC Rodeo team is once again headed for the College Nationals Finals Rodeo in Casper, Wyoming for the 18th consecutive year. It was an exceptional year for Coyote athletics. Go Coyotes! Thanks to the generous supporters of the fine arts, Weatherford College is now an all-Steinway Spirio institution, the first community college in the world to claim this title. This prestigious designation will help WC continue to attract world-class artists from around the globe. Employee notices. DMAC Local requires the college president to provide the name of contract employees that have resigned since the last board meeting. Evelyn Payne, an executive assistant in institutional advancement, is retiring effective 8/31/22. Misty Kirchum, the controller, is retiring effective 8/31/22. And Tony Martin from purchasing has resigned effective 6/16/22. We thank Evelyn, Missy, and Tony for their service and wish them the very best in future endeavors. Enrollment update. As of Tuesday, June 7th, we had 1,675 students enrolled for the summer semester. With enrollment ongoing, this represents a 6.7 year-to-date increase. At this early point in the summer, we currently have 1,858 students registered for the fall semester. This represents a 13.7% increase in year-to-date enrollment for the fall semester. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the President's report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about that? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item number 4, consent agenda and financial reports. We have A through F as listed and posted on the agenda. Are there any questions or comments about that before I ask for a motion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and financial reports?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion second All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving to number 5, consideration possible action authorization to obtain credit card account with Prosperity Bank, $150,000 credit limit. Dr. Cantrell.
It's been several years, but we moved Prosperity Bank, and when we did, we left our credit cards at, it was BBVA at that time. It recently came to light with the addition of the new athletic programs that were now over 100,000, and the requirements were different, and many things had changed. And so, talking with our depository pledge, we think it's in the best interest of the college to move to Prosperity with those credit cards and raise the limit to 150,000 to cover all of the sports that we have and make sure they're not out on the road without coverage and all that. So we recommended this time.
Anything else, ma'am? Any questions or comments about this agenda item? Is there a motion that the Board of Trustees authorize the opening of a revolving credit card account with Prosperity Bank with a combined $150,000 credit limit?
So moved.
Is there a motion second? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Moving to number 6, consideration possible action approval of procurement method for RFP-13-22 Betty Jo Graber Gymnasium re-roofing project. Once again, Dr. Cantrell.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Back last winter, we had an issue with the roofing. It's very old, and it's time to replace it. And it just took us some time to get some architect drawings on it. So they're ready now to, they're completed and ready to bid it.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you.
This time.
Looking at the agenda item, are there any questions or comments about this particular matter?
How long has that roof been on there?
About 12, 13 years, and it's,
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call for a motion. Is there a motion that the Board of Trustees approve competitive sealed proposals as the method of procurement that provides the best value and delegation of authority and selection of a committee to Dr. Todd Allen Farmer, President of Weatherford College, for the Betty Jo Graber Gym re-roofing project as presented? Is there such a motion?
so moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. That passes. Moving to number 7, consideration possible action resolution for prevailing wage determination for balance of fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Dr. Cantrell, you're carrying the load?
Yeah, this is a requirement by the law that we are in going into building projects, we are to have a prevailing wage determination. Raleigh came in last time and made that recommendation. And so being a year later and time to move on with the new building, also with the construction projects, we need to declare that. So at this point in time, we'd like to recommend the prevailing wage and the balance for the fiscal year.
Okay. Hearing that information and looking at the agenda item as it's listed in our packet, is there any questions or comments regarding the information and discussion that's provided there? Mr. Curley is also there listed as someone who has weighed in on that particular topic. So the question is, are there any questions or comments about agenda item number 7?
Not for me, sir. It's something we need to do.
Okay. I was talking about the board also. I was asking the board if they have any questions for you or Dr. Cantrell, really. That's what I was
I
asking.
rest my case.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, with that in mind, the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve Texas Government Code Section 2258022A subsection 2 as its option in determining the general prevailing wage rate of per diem wages as presented. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. That. Did you raise your hand? Okay, thank you, sir. I know that. Okay. Thank you, sir. We'll move to agenda item number 8. We have reports, academics, student services update, B, proposed 2022-23 budget presentation, and C, Weatherford College Campus Security Crisis Management Plan. So we'll go to A first, the written report on A. And I'm not sure who has that.
I'll speak to that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Farmer.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Indy has provided you a detailed update for academic and student services. A lot of things going on there, including our guided pathways and numbers with heart additions. So if you have any questions regarding that, Mr. Indy and his team are doing a fantastic job in that area. And then we have 2 verbal presentations. The first of which is our budget presentation, which will be presented by Dr. Cantrell. That will be followed by a campus security and crisis management plan update by Chief Bigg. So Dr. Cantrell, the floor is yours, please.
Is this Dr. Farmer is over here?
Yes,
Is that-
wherever you're comfortable.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to come forward today. This is our proposed budget. This is not the big one yet. So the long one that we go to is in August. But today I would like to just speak to you from the summary of our proposed budget for the coming year. There's still a lot of work to be done on the budget. This gives the parameters of the budget that we're working with. The proposed 22-23 Weatherford College budget projects totals at a total of $71,111,485. That is a decrease over last year, but the decrease is in the CARES funding. We lost roughly we didn't lose it, we utilized about $12 million this year in the budget for CARES, CARISA, and ARPA, or that were the federal dollars from the government. So that's going to be reflected throughout the budget, and talk about it. There were no increases in state appropriations. This has been the second year of the biennium. We had a decrease in the budget of $5,253,000 in student aid due to the CARES, CARISA, and ARPA. A decrease in operating grants of $7,428,262. All of those funds in the $5,253,000 in the student went to the students this year, and I think that's very great. I think they appreciated it. I think it helped them a lot. And we will still have, minus this $5,253,000 and the $7,428,000 for the institutional funds, we've still got $1,750,000 to carry over to next year that's showing in this current budget that we will be able to carry over due to they've extended it to the May of next year.
So it's got to be spent by May?
May of next year. We were told it was like May of this year, but back in April, they said you could ask for an extension, but they came out and automatically gave it to us. So are doing a lot. The campus is full today of cranes and different air conditioning being rejuvenated here on campus, put new equipment all over. So it's done us a lot of good. I think that we will see for the many years to come the decreases in equipment that this took care of for us, or is taking care of. We've had a little bit of a problem getting the equipment for backlog in orders, but hopefully everything will be in by August, and because we did have to push one to July, I think, one of the shipments to July. But it's coming, and we do have the extension of a year in case it doesn't get here till the next year. We have an increase of $1,040,000 in tuition dollars that was approved in the March board meeting, with the increase of about 7.12% rate on our tuition dollars. The Parker County taxes here, they show right now, only $1 million in there. We're waiting for the final figure certifications on our roads to come in the end of July, and at that time, we can get very busy and calculating the exact rate that we'll be able to do. And at that time, I expect that there may be some dollars added additionally to that. Preliminary values show an increase of 7.5% at this point. At $19,270,000,000, the tentative number is, and it's compared to $17 billion last year, or nearly $18 billion. Local funds other decreased by $324,000. The budget decreased based on conservative estimates right now of any potential pledges that we would have to the college or interest income. We know where interest income is right now. So the fact that we've spent our dollars down some on the new buildings and also the rates being where they are, there's less dollars for interest income. Auxiliary services have increased by $2,056,224. That's due to the adoption of the institutional enrichment fee and the increase in those for student activities and athletic activities that we have on campus, along with the room and board charges and increases that we have. The public service line item there, that has to do now with our new radio station. And that $16,000, it shows a decrease at this time, but that's net of what pledges we had in this current year. So it's up still over the last year, because I think that was it came in an amended budget. But so this time we have $144,000 budgeted for the coming year in revenue on the new radio station. We have a decrease in debt service revenue of $607,400 in revenue, and that's because of the old 1996 general obligation bond was retired this last fall. So it's gone, so that revenue and expenditures will go away. Wise County taxes have not been adjusted at this time, pending final valuations from Wise County. The preliminary values show an increase of 15% at this time. We are now at $10,322,000 as compared to $8,570,000 in '21. Currently, it shows in the Wise County budget, but I'm hoping that we have some changes there with possibly taxes or with the increase there. We currently show a transfer from reserves from $175,000 to balance the WCWC budget. We may be able to look closer at revenues on the tuition. We're moving our nursing class up there for night also. So we're going to be watching it closely this next month. There's $482,000, I believe, in that $2,482,000, but the $2 million is required to be held at all times. So $482,000 that could be spent for the campus. So if we have to transfer the $175,000 this time, it is there. Major changes to expenditures for the 22-23 year are, we have a minimum right now of a 5% raise in salaries across the board. That amounts to approximately $800,000 throughout the budget. What we're looking at, we're reviewing budget further the month of July. When I come back to you in August, hopefully we'll have a final recommendation at that time. The administration is looking at possibly doing more. We are hopeful that we could. So that is not a final figure, but it's just a proposed at this time. It's what the current budget is allowing right now. We have an increase in overall general institutional funds in the amount of $731,000. This includes approximately $175,000 for insurance increases, contingency of $200,000 for possible personnel adjustments. I put a little bit there in case, hopefully we can do some things in salaries, or new personnel. It's whatever the administration comes to a consensus on. And then we have $300,000 for technology equipment, a lot of new cybersecurity items, things like that they're there that would fall under that general institution across the board. Our instructional costs have increased overall, academic and VOTEC, a net $326,000. I believe academic went down a little bit, but workforce has gone up. Public service costs, that's the radio station again, that's decreased by, the budget has decreased by $445,000, and that's due to the purchase of the license this current year on the budget. And then we have a decrease of $102,000 in planning, research and development. And that has to do a whole lot with, I think, the SACs being completed and being over, and we're able to move some personnel around and do some things there for a savings that's been added back to the budget. We have an increase in plant operation and maintenance. Some of that has to do with our increase with our maintenance. Some of it has to do with put it a little bit more in major repair and rehabilitation to help offset some of the constantly increasing demands on our campus that we are very proud of that we've been able to do. But it's a growing campus, I can tell you that, in college. And I also would like to point out how many people in the last few weeks that I have talked to that are so proud of what the college is becoming and what it looks like. I don't know if that's the case, but I was at the rodeo last night, and that came up several times in conversations. We have student aid and operating grants were decreased by the $12 million, but we have several other grants that's a net figure there, so all of our Perkins, all of them are up just a little bit at this point in time, but there are other grants, operating grants, that I'm sure we won't hear from till could be into July or early August. And at that time, there will be an adjustment made when y'all see this budget in August. And once again, the debt service expenditures, now the debt service revenue from the general obligation bond went away, but we have a debt service increase because of the new workforce bonds of $649,596 that will be paid from transfer from tuition dollars that have come in. And then auxiliary enterprises have increased by $596,000 due to costs associated with increased student activities on both campuses, Wise County and main campus. And also increased costs associated with the food services going up, housing costs going up, and the costs associated with the inaugural year of the new volleyball program in athletics. Debt service has increased. I mentioned that already. I think that might have been a duplicate. Equipment overall has been decreased by $656,000 this year. Supplies overall has decreased by $451,000, and travel has increased by $39,000. I think people are picking up once again a little bit and doing some traveling, going to much needed conferences and that we haven't done in the last 2 or 3 years. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I went through pretty fast. If you have individual questions, I just want to remind you that adjustments to this proposed budget will be made all through July and early August, trying to get ready. It will be posted online today. It may have already been as of today for people to review the proposed budget. And there has been only minimal increase. I want to remind you that there's only been minimal increases in the Parker County taxes and no tax increase shown for Wise County at this point. And further compensation increases are under consideration also by the administration for recommendation in August to you all. I have some preliminary dates. I have not had an opportunity to discuss with Dr. Farmer, and I'm sure we'll approve them in cabinet when he returns from vacation next week. But preliminary dates for the hearings in August and all that, right now, if we compare to last year at this time, the first budget workshop would be on August the 9th. And then the meeting to propose the tax rate increase would be on August 11th. That's the regular board meeting that we have. And then we would have a public hearing on August the 22nd and an adoption of the budget on August 3rd. And those are preliminary at this time, but I thought if you wanted to get a little bit of an idea of where we're going, and we will finalize those and get those to you just as soon as they've been approved by the cabinet. Are there other questions?
Dr. Cantrell, I think you and the administration team just do a fantastic job, and I want to make sure that everybody knows how much I feel like I appreciate that. And every time you do this budget, it's a chore.
It's a little more complicated
It
all
is.
the time.
Every year
But we
it
have
gets
a
more and
wonderful
more,
team to work
and,
with, and I'm very
it's
proud
just a
to work
chore.
with them.
I think this is a really, I appreciate your work on this, and it speaks for itself. There's going to be some people that don't agree with us on the budget, but that's always the way it is. But all in all, we just got a really good team. I appreciate you and all the people that work on the administration team, all the people that do all the things that people
I
just
do
kind
too.
of expect. It doesn't just happen, though.
We start in the fall.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Cantrell?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to echo your comments. I really appreciate not only Dr. Cantrell and her team, but the entire cabinet and faculty and staff. This is an increasingly complex endeavor. And the last time I looked, we were the only college that the state comptroller had awarded a financial transparency star that's available online. So I'm exceedingly pleased with the collaborative work that has produced this preliminary budget. So thank you, Dr. Cantrell.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we'll move to C, Weatherford College Campus Security Crisis Management Plan. Chief, can you come forward?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. I want to say on this, I know the entire board will feel the same way, but this is such a timely topic, and it's so important these days, and I know the entire board's going to be concerned about security as we move forward. I know you're going to address all those topics, and I really appreciate your background and what you bring to this campus as an officer.
Thank you, sir.
And your ability to analyze and know what we need, what we don't have, what we need to put into play so we can avoid these tragedies that are moving forward all over our country. And I just want to make sure you understand that. And I'm not sure how this got on the agenda item, but it's really, really timely.
Well, thank you,
You've
sir.
got the floor, sir.
I can't, well, I wish I could say that my presentation would be as well delivered as Dr. Cantrell's. I'll tell you up front, it won't be, but on the plus side, there will be less math involved. So I'd like to thank Dr. Farmer and the board for allowing me the time to come talk to you today. As you alluded to, the recent events in Uvalde specifically are a stark reminder that there are evil people in this world who wish to inflict pain and suffering on the most vulnerable among us. I cannot guarantee you that Weatherford College will never be targeted by such an individual. I can promise you, though, that from the first day I got here, I've been doing everything in my power to both prevent such an incident from occurring and to maximize our ability to respond if and when it does. My goal today is to give you a clear picture of where we were as a department when I arrived, some of the changes that have been implemented since, and my vision of where we're headed with regard to campus safety in general and active shooter mitigation specifically. While I was both surprised and delighted by the opportunity I was given to be your police chief, I also understood that with that position came an enormous responsibility. And I honestly did not know what I would find when I got up here. I am pleased to report that my worst fears were not realized as far as our officers go, and on the contrary, I've found them to be intelligent, capable, courageous, ethical, and disciplined. That's not to say there weren't some deficiencies. The most obvious I noticed was that some of our officers, about half of them, were not wearing their issued body armor. You don't need to be a SWAT team member or like a Navy SEAL to know that that's not a good thing, especially if we're talking about encountering an active shooter. Fortunately, that one was easy to correct, and I did that on day one. You will not see one of our officers walking around this campus without their body armor on, and if you do, please let me know. Slightly more challenging to address was our relationship, or perhaps better said, our lack of relationship with Weatherford PD. If we were to have an active shooter on campus, our two agencies would respond at the same time, and honestly, depending on the specifics of the incident, their officers may get to the location where the shooter is before we do. So it's very important that we know how to work together. I met with Chief Arnold before I even got up here. The two of us hit it off pretty well, but after our conversation, it was obvious that the relationship between our two agencies was not where either one of us wanted it to be. So we started working on that immediately. I'm pleased to report we've made significant progress in that area. Most importantly, our two agencies are now training together regularly. I asked Chief Arnold if we could join in WPD's quarterly tactical training exercises, and we've been allowed to do that. So our officers are now conducting simulator-based training side by side with WPD officers once every quarter. Many of the scenarios used in those training sessions deal specifically with active shooters. If any of our board members would like to observe that training in the future, I'd be happy to try to facilitate that. The next session should be in late summer, early fall. We've also started having our new officers do ride-outs with WPD as part of their training. I'd like to point out this joint activity with WPD doesn't stop with our sworn officers. We've had our front office staff observe their communications as well. Just this past week, Stephanie Edwards sat for 2 days with their dispatch so that she could see how 911 calls come in and how to get that information and put it out to officers. I'd also like to point out the effort to obtain better training for our officers is not limited to just what we do with WPD. For example, the day after the Uvalde tragedy, the Johnson County Sheriff's Office announced they'd be hosting what's called an alert class, but they'd only have 12 spots available. So we moved quickly and we were able to secure a slot for our new officer, Justin Porter. I assume most people in this room don't know what alert is. It's actually ALERRT, Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. And it's kind of the gold standard when it comes to active shooter training. The program was initially developed right here in Texas at Texas State University in 2002, but it's since spread nationwide and is kind of the standard for active shooter training across the country. All of our other officers, besides Porter, have been through that type of training multiple times, myself included. So we've covered the vest issue, training, and our relationship with WPD. One more area in which I saw an opportunity for improvement had nothing to do with staffing. Had to do with staffing. I realized that while our numbers are sufficient for routine operations, if we ever had a true emergency or a credible threat that would require additional resources, we'd be stretched thin. And I want to tell you all, I am sensitive to financial reality. I completely understand why it's not feasible right now to just start adding full-time officer positions. So because of that, I got with my staff and we started thinking outside the box a little bit and tried to come up with ways to add competent and qualified officers to our roster without adding those full-time positions or otherwise stretching the budget. So first, we have one full-time security officer, Tom Murphy. He's been with the college for 15 years. He's fantastic. He actually has a master's degree. We're putting him through the public safety academy that we have here on campus. When Murph graduates in October, he'll be a licensed police officer, and his current security position will be converted to a police position. Since his pay grade will remain the same, we'll have gained a full-time officer at zero cost to the college aside from his uniforms and equipment. Second, we're initiating a reserve officer program, which will be limited to licensed peace officers who are already employed by the college in some capacity. I was kind of surprised to find out that we have a handful of these folks already on campus, and they're already known entities. They're trusted and vetted. For example, Walt Bauer, who runs the Law Enforcement Academy, has already transferred his peace officer license from Parker County SO to our agency. We also have Sharon Johnson. She runs our academic criminal justice program. She's another example. I expect she will transfer her license from the Erath County DA's office to us in the near future. So these reserve officers are not going to participate in our routine day-to-day activities, but they'll greatly enhance our ability to respond to emergency situations and can bolster our presence on campus if we were to have a heightened security concern. Just like with Tom Murphy, we're going to get these benefits at no cost to the college, aside from the uniforms and equipment, which we've already written into our budget for the next year, pending approval. Lastly, while I very much value the service of the 10 part-time security officers we have stretched across our Maine and Wise County campuses, they are not police officers. They lack both the training and equipment to even handle routine police calls, much less respond to an active shooter. So we've begun the process of gradually transitioning away from security officers and toward part-time police officers. I want to emphasize that this is a gradual process, and we're just starting it. We probably won't ever reach a point where we just have police officers with no security guards. I'm not going to fire any of our security guards. They're doing a great job just because I want to make room for more cops. Rather, as we lose security officers through natural attrition, we just won't hire new ones to replace them. So right now, we're hiring our first 2 part-time police officers. And the cost difference between a security officer and a part-time police officer, it turns out it's only a few dollars an hour, plus the uniforms and equipment. And this difference, it's not, I wouldn't describe it as negligible, but it's within our means. The benefit in terms of the enhanced emergency response capability that those officers will provide far outweighs the cost. So between Murphy, the reservists, and the part-time officers, by this time next year, we should be able to field literally double the number of officers we currently have available if we did have an emergency call-up situation or some kind of credible threat to the college. For example, if we had intelligence that we may be targeted, we could call up close to a dozen officers by this time next year to just be here on campus. All the items I've discussed up to this point deal with our ability to respond to a threat or emergency. Of course, mitigation is only one side of the coin. The other is prevention. I think we can all agree that even if we have the best police department in the country, we'd rather prevent an active shooting before it occurs than have a perfect response after the shots start ringing out. Our first and probably best line of defense against an active shooter has nothing to do with tactics, training, or even staffing. It's actually our relationship with the student body. All of our officers spend time talking, mentoring, and developing rapport with our students on an individual basis. And I want you to know this goes way beyond just saying hello when we're walking across the campus. Tom Murphy, who I mentioned before, eats dinner with the students in the cafeteria almost every night during our regular semesters. Justin Porter, our new dorm officer, will have an office there in Coyote Village and will be there every evening during the week. Bill Cooper spends a significant portion of his day just walking around and talking with students he encounters on campus. And I know Vern Higby does the same thing on the Wise County campus and probably knows most of those students by their first name. For my part, I volunteered to be a co-advisor for our student anime club, and during the regular semesters, I spend time with those students every week, just getting to know them. So this close relationship works to our advantage in 2 ways. First and most obviously, if the students do have a safety concern, I think they're much more likely to report it to us if we've already built a certain level of trust with them and credibility. Secondly, by actively engaging our students, we're more likely to identify those who may give cause for concern. Every campus tragedy since Columbine has been a little different, but a lot of the suspects in these incidents share common characteristics. They're almost always males who feel frustrated, angry, bullied, or isolated. Our close relationship with our students allows us to identify individuals who fit this profile and intervene in a positive way before they go too far down the dark road. When we identify somebody that we're concerned about, we approach them in a non-confrontational way, and we try to offer them the counseling and resources that they need to turn things around. Preventing and responding to an active shooter scenario can't just be the responsibility of the PD, however. Our faculty, staff, and students also play a role. This starts with education. To that end, we've already offered several sessions of a training presentation I call Enhancing Personal Safety. We've done that both at our main campus and at Wise County as well. A portion of this presentation deals specifically with active shooters. Next year, I'd like to expand it into basically a two-part thing where we have the personal safety as one presentation, and then it's followed up by a second training session that's specifically dealing with active shooters. One other thing I want to mention briefly, some of you may be wondering, do we have a written plan to deal with an active shooter or other major emergency? The short answer is yes. The slightly longer is yeah, but it needs some major work. We currently have what's called a crisis management plan, which you may or may not be familiar with. In my opinion, while it's better than nothing, it doesn't offer much in the way of practical guidance. Recently, there was a new state mandate that came into effect which requires us to expand this crisis management plan into an emergency operations plan, or EOP. I've already been in touch with the Texas School Safety Center who oversees the new mandate. They've reviewed our crisis management plan, and they've given us some preliminary guidance on what we need to do to get it to an EOP. We've obtained EOPs from peer institutions to help us get started. The new EOP will be developed under oversight from our Safety and Crisis Management Committee, of which I am the chair. Since our own Sergeant Cooper has some prior experience in this area through his involvement with Brock ISD, he will take the lead role in actually drafting the document, and he's already gotten started on it. Once the draft is complete, it's going to need to be vetted by the safety committee as well as our legal department. I hope to have the new EOP in place by the start of the fall semester, but I'm going to acknowledge up front that that's very ambitious, and I don't know if we're going to hit that mark. My goal is that by the end of the process, we will not only have a document which meets the mandate requirements, but that's also a practical tool we can use when we have to respond to an emergency. To sum up, I'd rather get it done right than get it done fast. In closing, I want to emphasize that active shooter preparation is a continuous process. There's no end point. I'm never going to come up here and say, okay, we've done everything we possibly can and we're now ready. Rather, the goal is continuous improvement. We've come a very long way from where we were this time last year, and I think by this time next year we'll have gone even further. But this is a topic and problem that's not simply going to go away, no matter how much we work at it. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and at this time I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am.
Great presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm assuming, and I think I've asked this question before, but I've forgotten the answer, the HyperReach, do we have that when students sign up for class and things like that?
Is that an emergency alert system?
Texting, yeah.
Yes,
No-
we have what's called Campus Cast.
Okay,
I recently attended a symposium with the Texas Association of College and University Police Administrators.
Okay.
And at that symposium, I learned about some other technology options that we may want to think about moving towards in the future. But the short answer is yes, we have an emergency communication system in place.
and when we do new student welcome and things like that, do we do any kind of brief discussion on what to do in an emergency? These are your resources. Do we do anything like that when we have these fresh faces on our campus?
Well, we could probably improve a little bit in that area. I know when we do core, the Coyote orientation and registration experience, all the groups of the students come to the police department, and we talk to them about safety in general. Also during that personal safety presentation that I discussed, that's kind of when we cover it in great detail, but it is not part of the basic kind of orientation that they do. So I may want to look at expanding that a little bit in the few minutes that I have with them when they come through our office.
Just a thought.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks.
Questions or comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Who wears cameras and when?
By policy, all of our sworn police officers should be wearing their cameras when they're out doing their routine patrolling all the time.
Not security, but just police officers, right?
Not our security officers, no, just our police officers.
Just
Does
so,
that include Wise County campus?
Yes, sir, it does.
just so there's no question about it, I would assume that Sheriff Lafayette and his his staff, you're in good contact with them, and they're fully cooperating and working with the college?
We don't have a bad relationship with the sheriff's office by any means. I've met Sheriff Authier several times. We've chatted a little bit.
Okay.
But honestly, the people we deal with most and the people that are going to kind of take the lead with us if we were to have an incident
Okay.
is the PD. That being said, one of my goals for the next year is to kind of do what I did with Weatherford PD and expand that to the sheriff's office. I don't know that it's really feasible for us to train with them as regularly as we do with WPD. I know our individual officers have friends and associates within the Parker County Sheriff's Office, and I describe our relationship as pretty good.
Okay.
It definitely, the baseline when I got here with the Sheriff's Office was probably higher than it was with WPD when I got here.
Okay, all right.
Has there been a discussion with Chief Arnold about command and control in an active shooter situation?
Not specifically, no. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking about that as I wrote this presentation. I was like, that's probably a conversation that he and I need to have. Realistically, what would most likely happen, because our agency is so small, right now, we're fully staffed today and we have 3 officers on this campus. If we had an active shooter, our 3 officers would probably be the first in with the Weatherford PD officers that arrived first. And you know, I hate to put it this way, but by the time the shooting stops, we may be down a couple officers. And realistically, it's probably going to be Weatherford PD running the show after the initial incident.
I think that's very plausible and astute of you to acknowledge that. I just don't want there to be any question about it in the moment that somebody doesn't understand who's going to call the shots. Sorry.
Well, the thing is, I know the Weatherford PD officers are not going to take orders from me, and there's going to be a lot more of them there than there are us. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to run the show until one of them, probably Chief Arnold, comes and says, I'm going to relieve you as incident commander, and then it's going to go over to him.
Fair enough.
But we do need to kind of formalize that and have that conversation,
I
which we
couldn't
haven't
agree
done.
with that comment before.
Dr. Farmer, any questions or comments?
No, sir, just, well, I do have a comment. Again, there's no higher priority than keeping our students, faculty, staff, and community members safe. And we are so appreciative of the effort that Chief Bigg and his team put into keeping us safe. And as he stated, it is an ongoing process, and continuous improvement is a part of that process. So thank you, Chief Bigg.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. There's no action involved in agenda item number 8, is there? Am I correct?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. We'll move to number 9, future agenda items or meetings. President Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been informed that due to procurement requirements for the new radio station equipment, we will need a called board meeting on June 23rd at 2 p.m. And this room will be booked for the East Parker County Chamber of Commerce Job Fair. So we will be distributing an alternate location, I believe, in the DOS room is where we will be meeting, but that will be shipped out to you. And then next month at our regularly scheduled board meeting, we will be bringing you our inaugural report on our robotics program. So we look forward to that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you. Mr. Baker, announcements?
Yes, sir. Just like to remind the board members that you're always invited to our ex-students luncheons. We have on the second Monday of the month over in the Aline String Community Room. You don't have to be an alum to come. We'd love to have you. We'll have a meeting next Monday, and then, of course, on July the 11th. We have a Shakespeare play coming up, A Midsummer Night's Dream, 2 weekends, July 1st through 3rd and July 8th through the 10th, as part of our summer stage program on the Alkek Theater. And then, of course, we have our Weatherford College International Piano Competition, July 29th and the 30th. That's my report.
Any questions or comments about that? If not, we'll move to agenda item number 11. At this time, the open session is adjourned, and we will reassemble in our meeting room. in just about 2-3 minutes. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, it's now 20 minutes until 4 o'clock, and I'll call the public meeting back to order, and we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is consideration possible action regarding real property. And so we're going to ask for a motion, and at that point, if there's a motion made, we will ask for a second, and then hopefully be able to vote on a matter involving what's known as the Carter property. And basically what this motion involves is that the board will, to the extent possible, the Carter property as the property that we're dealing with here, be leased by way of several multi-year ground leases. The terms to be negotiated by President Farmer or his designee. Any proposed lease will be approved by the board if that takes place, to be executed upon by the president. All proceeds generated by any such lease or the duration of the lease would be considered restricted funds to be used exclusively for the purposes contemplated by the resolution, which could be modified from time to time by the board, whatever board is in session at the time, in its sole discretion. And finally, that the use of the proceeds that could be generated by the several leases will require the prior approval of the board. Is there such a motion?
I would so move.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous, I think. Thank you. So now we will move to the next agenda item, which is number 13, consideration, possible action, appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, and dismissal of a public officer or employee. And what we're really talking about this is whether there will be a motion to nominate and put in place a trustee to fill the space of Ms. Cody when she retired or resigned from the board. So we have two people who have made application. One is Mrs. Priscilla Hall, one is Mr. G.B. Bailey. The board has interviewed those people by asking 5 specific questions and no more that were answered. I can't go into the details because it's a closed session, but that's the process, and we followed the process as was indicated by our legal counsel. And so as a result of that, now then, I will ask, is there a nominee? Does anyone nominate as a motion to put forward a trustee to fill the vacancy? Is there such a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Judy has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Judy
Oh,
had
okay.
her hand
Yeah,
up.
Go
there's
ahead.
people on this side. I nominate Ms. Hall.
All right. Motion for Ms. Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, raise your right hand. See two. Thank you. That motion fails. Mr. Carney, you had a motion?
I do. I would nominate G.B. Bailey for the position.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. That motion passes. Thank you very much. I want to say that we are appreciative of the applicants and all the applicants, the 2 that were brought forward. We appreciate their interest, and there's no doubt that both are equally able to serve, but one has been elected, and we will now ask, by moving to the next agenda item, which is swearing in of the newly appointed trustee. Are we ready to do that today? Mr. Bailey, can you move forward? And are you prepared to take an oath today, Mr. Bailey?
I am prepared, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations. Don't mind raising your right hand and reading that.
I, G.B. Bailey, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Weatherford College of the Parker County Junior College District Board of Trustees, Place 6 of the state of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of this state, so help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey, turn and probably face the camera and the people who are here, and introduce yourself, please.
My name is George Bedford Bailey, officially known as GB. Been a resident of Parker County for about 37 years. Our son attended Weatherford ISD, and I've been on the Region Service Center Region 11 board for 26 years, so well aware of boards. I was on the Weatherford board for 6. So well aware of what it takes to, I think, be a board member and a good board member, and I look forward to being part of this board.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. You're now officially sworn in. I don't think we have a seat for you.
Do I need to sign that? Anyway. No. Right here. Okay. With that, I get a bank.
Okay, Mr. Bailey, I guess you can just stand where you are. And I have agenda item number 15 that I want to move to. Is there a motion to adjourn?
There is.
Is there a
So
second?
moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's good. Congratulations, Mr. Bailey.